All right, so we're going to go ahead and get started with our next lesson, lesson 10 for day one. And we're talking about measures of central tendency today. So the first uh, vocabulary word you probably heard before, it's probably review. It's called mean. And what does mean mean? It's the average. You find the mean by adding all the numbers together and then dividing by however many numbers you added together. And so let me show you an example. So let's say I had the numbers 2, 0, 1, and 4. So to get the mean or the average of these, I would add 2 plus 0 plus 1 plus 4. So the sum of all those would be 7, right? And then to get the mean, I'd divide by 1, 2, 3, 4. So dividing by 4 like that, or the mean or the average of these four numbers would be 2 plus 1 plus 4. And then divide by 4 would be 1.75, or 1 and 75 hundredths would be the mean. But what I want to point out here is that even if you have the number 0, that counts as one of the numbers that you add together for your divisor. Okay? So, next vocabulary word. We're going to, next problem. Sorry, it's not another vocabulary word. It's just another problem. So, we're going to find the mean of these digits here. So, to find the mean, I would add all these up. And right now, it's okay if we're using calculators. So add those up in your calculators, you get 56, and divide by 7. Now, why do we divide by 7? Because there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 numbers. That's why we divide by 7, and that's how you get your mean or your average. Next vocabulary word we're going to talk about is the median. Median sounds like middle, doesn't it? So, and that's exactly what it is. It's the number in the middle. So to get the median some numbers, you're going to have to put all the numbers in order from least to greatest. And then whatever's in the middle, that's your median. It's that simple. So we're going to go ahead and take these numbers and write them in order from least to greatest first. So see how we have a 2, and then a 3, and a 39, and a 0. So what I would do is I'd write the 0 first. Okay. Notice how I cross it off as I do it. Then I'd say, now there's a 2. That's the next biggest number. So that's why I wrote the 2 next. And then say, oh, next is 3, but there's 1, 2, 3, 3. So I'd write 3, 3, 3. And then next biggest number would be 6, and the last number would be 39. And if I use this cross-off method here, I see that I didn't miss any numbers, did I? And so I just count until I get in the middle, right? If I work my way in like this, keep working my way in until I get to the middle, that's going to be the median. So what you can do is you can just cross out 1 and 1, and cross out 1 and 1, and cross out 1 and 1 until you get to the middle, and that's your median. Now, what do we do if there's an even number of digits? For example, let's say I had these numbers here, and I had to find the median or middle. If I crossed out 1 and 1, and crossed out 1 and 1, and there was nothing in the middle, then you would take the two numbers that are in the middle, and you would find the, guess what? You would find the mean of those numbers. You would add those two together and divide by 2, and that's how you'd get your median if there was an even amount of numbers. Now, mode sounds like most, and that's all it is. For the mode, you're just finding which number shows up the most. So, for example, this data set here, we have 3 3s, 1 2, 1 0, 1 39. So of course we see 3 the most. So 3 is the mode. And we'll talk about what to do if there's a tie here real soon, okay? First, let's talk about range. Range is the difference between the smallest and the biggest number. So if we wanted to find the range for this data set here, the smallest number is 0, right? The biggest number is 39, and subtract those two, and that's exactly how you find the range. Biggest subtract smallest. So let's use that information there to practice some problems here. we have some numbers here. We're going to find the mean or the average of these. And the reason we're doing this information is because we're going to need this when we do box and whisker plots and double box plots and even double dot plots. Because some of you might have seen this already in earlier grades, mean, median, and mode. And this is a skill that we need for box and whiskers, which is what we're going to do next. So that's why we're reviewing this, because I'm sure you've probably seen this before. But let's go ahead and keep practicing it now. So finding the mean, given these numbers here, I want you guys to pause the video now and try to find the mean on your own. So let's see what the mean is. The mean is, I add all these numbers up. I have a 5, so I go 5 plus 4 plus 4 plus another 4 plus 5. And I'm just adding all these numbers up, right? And the sum of all these is, oh, did I get that 7 in there? 7. Sum of all these numbers is 35. Hope I did that right. We'll check the answer here in a second. And then divide by how many numbers there are. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So I divide by 7, and we see that we get an average, if I did it correctly, if I typed it in correctly, of 5. That's our mean. How about the median for this data? Pause the video now and find the median. So for the median, we have to put the numbers in order from least to greatest. So I go through here and I scan through and I see the smallest number is a 4, so I'll write the 4 first. But there's 1, 2, 3, 4. So I go like this. 1, 2, 3, 4. So notice I cross it off as I go, right? Next biggest number is a 5. So I go 1, 2, 5s, just like that. 1, 2, 5s. Then the next biggest number is a 6. So I'll go ahead and cross off the 6 now. And the next number is a 7. And to find the median, we just count our way in, right? Cross off one, cross off one, cross off another one, cross off another one. Whatever's in the middle, middle means median. That's my median, 5. Pause the video now and try to find the mode for this data set. So the mode is what shows up the most. Yep, 4 shows up the most. So the mode is 4. Now, what if I had, let's say, 2 2s, 2 3s, and an 8? What would be my mode now? What do you think? Well, if there's a tie for the most, then the 2 and the 3 would both be the mode. Or modes, I guess you'd say. I'm not really sure about that. So the mode would be 2 and 3. Right? Now, what if there was a three-way tie? If nobody had more than anyone else, then this is what you would say. Your answer would be no mode in this case. Okay? So you have to have at least one loser to have a mode. Like if I had 3 2s and 3 8s and only 2 3s, then my mode would be 2 and 8, but not 3. But if there's a three-way tie, if there was no clear victor, then you have no mode. So you can have no mode, or you can have more than one mode. Okay? All right. So let's take a look. What's the range? Pause the video real quick. Try that. And hopefully you took the smallest number and the largest number. You subtracted those two to get a range of 3. Let's go ahead and move on to our next problem now. We're going to practice. So we got a little review for our next quiz. And, well, we're mixing and review with the new stuff, right? So we're talking about finding the average or mean of these numbers, but now we're throwing fractions back in there. But it's the same thing that we just did in the last problem. We have to add these numbers together and then divide by 3, and we'll review how to do that when there's fractions, right? First, add these together. But when you're adding 0, nothing changes, right? So we're adding 1/4 and negative 1/3. Remember, we put the negative up top in a fraction so we know what to do with it, right? Now, I need a common denominator when I'm adding fractions. So the first time the multiples of 4 and the multiples of 3 are the multiples of those bottom numbers. Our denominators are the same, or the lowest common denominator is 12. So I rewrite 1/4, so it has 12 in the bottom. So 3/12 is the same as the fraction 1/4. Over here, negative times positive is negative. Negative 4/12 is the same as 1/3, right? Why is it the same? Because I multiplied by the same to the top and the bottom, which makes this technically the number 1. And when we multiply a number by 1, we know it doesn't change, even though it might look different. So now I can add them together, use teams. Opposite teams mean subtract. Negatives have more. So my answer is negative 1/12. That's what I get when I add all these. But that's not my mean yet. You know what I mean? First, we got to divide this by 1, 2, 3. So now I have negative 1/12, and I need to divide that by 3. How do we divide when there's a fraction involved? We multiply by the reciprocal. The reciprocal of 3 is 1/3. There's no 1's to cross out, so I should get a mean of negative 1/36. How about the median for this data set? Pause the video, try that. So the median for this data set, I put them in order from least to greatest. Cross them out as you go, especially if you have a long list, right? Cross them out as you go. Cross out, and when I get to the middle, if there's nothing there, then I take the 2 in the middle, and I find the mean for those two. So the mean, or the average of 2 and 3, is 2 plus 3, which is 5. Then divide that by 2, which is 2.5. You can do that in the calculator, right? Or what's halfway in between 2 and 3? It's 2.5, right? So let's try the next one. I'll check our answer first. Yep, 2.5. How about the mode? What's the mode for these numbers here? Well, zeros show up more than 3's and 4's, but so do 1's. So the mode is 0 and 1. That's our answer. We can have more than one mode, or we can have no modes, right? All right, and the last question on this slide here. What's the mode now? 3 zeros, 3 3's, and 3 2's. That means what? No mode. So our last problem, we are going to look at this data set, and we have some interesting looking numbers over here. You know, if we're going to find the range for these, we need to find the smallest and the biggest number. But before we can do any of that, we need to simplify these numbers. Whenever you guys see these bars, these long, thin bars, right, just review here, this means absolute value, which means a distance from 0. And a distance is always positive. So basically, some quick review here, if you see any absolute value bars, just pretend whatever's in there is positive, right? So if I had the absolute value of negative 8, then how far is that from 0? It's 8 spaces, so the absolute value of negative 8 is just 8. Sometimes people get confused, and I hope you're not, some of you aren't still doing this, where you think it just means opposite. So these are opposites, but these are not. So just kind of think of whatever's in those bars comes out positive. Now, how about this symbol right here? It kind of looks like a division symbol, but it's not, right? This is the square root symbol, right? Or the radical. And the number inside is called the radicand. This symbol means what do you multiply to itself to get that number in there? So if I had to simplify all the numbers first, these first 4 are good. This one just means regular old 31. And this one means what times itself is 225. And that's as simple as taking your calculator, typing it in, then hitting the square root button, and you would get 15. So this is actually the number 15. So now we can find the range. The smallest number, I hope you remember that negatives are smaller than positives. So negative 70 is smaller than 0.5. Smallest number is negative 70. Largest number is 40 and 8/10. And to get range, we subtract the smallest from the largest. Now, be careful though, because some of you might just subtract this 2 and get a number that's incorrect. You have to subtract a negative. So when I do the rule for subtraction, add the opposite. I draw 2 sticks. I see it's actually an addition problem, right? So subtracting a negative means to add that number. So I could take these two and simply just go 40 and 8 tenths. Or you can line your decimals up. You don't need a calculator for this to get your answer. So the range is 110 and 8 tenths. How about the mean? How about the average of these? I want you guys to pause the video and see if you can find the average on your own first. So to get the average, we would add all these up. Remember, we use a simplified version of these numbers though. So to add them up, I just go 9 plus 5 tenths plus, now watch how I do negative 70 in my calculator. I can go 70 and hit the opposite button. And if you know that adding a negative 70 is the same as just subtracting 70, yes, you could have put minus 70 there also. Plus 40 and 8 tenths plus, this means positive 31, plus this means 15. The sum of all those is 26 and 3 tenths. How can it be so small? Because that negative 70 was negative, right? And divide by how many numbers there are. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 numbers. So I divide by the number 6, and that's how we get our mean or our average. You could round that, or you can give an exact answer. The repeating decimal where the 3 is repeating after the 8 means you just put the bar or the vinculum over the 3. How about the median for these? Can you guys find the median for that data set right there? Pause the video, try that on your own first. So to get the median, we have to put them in order from least to greatest. So I put negatives are smaller than positives. So I put negative 70 first, cross it out as I go. I scan through there and I see 0.5 is the smallest, and I keep scanning. And if I don't see anything else smaller than 0.5, then that's what I write next. So as I scan through, this is helpful when you have a long list of numbers. As I scan through, I just remember what was the last smallest number. And I keep that in my head until I get to the next smallest number. And if I don't get to a smaller number, then that's what I write next. Okay, so 0.5 now, 9 is smallest. I scan through, if nothing's smaller than 9, then that's what I cross out and that's what I write next. Right here, 40.8 is the smallest so far. As I scan through, 31 smaller, so now that's in my head. As I scan through, 15 smaller, so that's what I write down. Whatever was the smallest number I saw last, and we want to make sure we cross them all out so we don't miss any. Now that I've ordered them from least to greatest, I can find the median by crossing these numbers off and going into the middle. Cross one off and one off. I'm trying to work my way to the middle. Cross one off, cross one off. And the problem is there is no number in the middle. There's an even amount of numbers. So what do? I take the 2 in the middle and I find the mean or average of those two, and that will be my median. So if the two numbers in the middle is 9 and 15, how do I find the mean or average of two numbers? I add those two numbers together. So I go 9 plus 15, then divide that by 2 because I'm adding two numbers together, and then my median will be 12. All right, so you guys practice these problems a few more times for your quiz next week. You guys send me a message if you need help. I'll be happy to set up a live stream for you on Friday.